Good morning, witches. Welcome back. If you are new here, my name's Steph. I run the podcast Witch Wednesdays, episode every Wednesday morning, and I also have videos here on YouTube every Friday. So if you are new here, please be sure to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up if you like it. It helps the channel grow, and I appreciate it so much. So let's get into today's video topic, and that is the question of ethics within witchcraft. And I wanted to tell you about my own personal ethics so you can get to know me a little bit better. So the first thing that you usually hear when it comes to witchcraft and ethics is that there are no rules in witchcraft. I'll say that a lot because unlike other religions that have a Bible or Quran to focus on, there are no written rules like that for witchcraft. If you are a Wiccan, there is the Wiccan Rede, and a lot of Wiccans do follow that says, don't do any harm to others. What you send out in the world will come back to you threefold, so you really don't want to send out any negative energy or do any baneful magic. But not every witch is a Wiccan. Hopefully you know that if you've been listening long enough. I am not a Wiccan. I do practice witchcraft. So I wholeheartedly agree that there are no rules. Since I'm not a Wiccan, for me, there are no rules. So yes, in the broadest term, when you say there are no rules and you can do whatever you want in witchcraft, that statement technically is true. There are, however, regional laws, first of all. So if you are doing something, say, oh, there are no rules in witchcraft and you get arrested, you're doing something illegal, there are laws for that. So those apply to witchcraft as well. They don't just go away. There are also, in general, just consequences to your actions. And this is true in any realm of life. It doesn't have to just be witchcraft. There are consequences to your actions. If you behave like a terrible person and do horrible things to your friends, you're not going to have friends for very long. Everyone is going to be mad at you. You are going to get fired. Whatever your negative consequences are, your actions directly affect how that happens. So you may be able to do whatever you want in witchcraft, but if you start doing a lot of horrible things and acting like a horrible person, you are going to have horrible consequences. That's kind of how society works. For me personally, I follow my own code of ethics and my own morals. I don't need a Bible or 10 Commandments to tell me not to kill somebody or how to just behave as a good person. I know how I feel when I do or don't behave the way that fits my morals. So if I am doing something that ethically I don't really love, like I feel terrible. I feel the physical effects of that, even if there are no consequences outside of that. I don't get arrested. I don't lose friends. If I do something that, bothers my soul inside, I am affected by that. I, can't sleep, don't feel well, I get headaches. So there are, physical consequences to that. So I don't need a set of written rules to tell me what to do and what not to do. I just know. I know based on how I feel. But everyone has a different set of morals and values. So mine are not going to directly match anyone else. So I do not begrudge any other, which is what they feel like doing or not doing. It's personal for everybody because we've all been through different experiences in life that shape who we are as a person. So that also shapes your morals and values. So nobody is going to be exactly the same. So really this question of ethics and whether or not there are rules comes up when you are doing magic for or against other people. If you are doing it against other people, it's usually called baneful magic. There's a whole podcast episode about this if you are interested, but I have mentioned before that I hate the terms black and white. So sometimes you hear it referred to as black magic or white magic, and I think those are terrible terms, first of all. It shouldn't be used to say that white is good and black is bad. You can understand why that has horrible implications. But I also don't believe there are any spells that you could do that are wholly good or wholly bad. Everything resides in this sort of gray area. And there may be consequences to even your best intentioned spells that you didn't think of. So I think everything is in shades of gray. So that whole concept of where you fall on that scale is deciding whether or not you feel comfortable doing magic for other people or against them. So the rest of this video, I'm going to talk about where I stand so you can get to know me a little bit better and why. So first off to say, I absolutely do witchcraft magic for other people and against other people. I am not against baneful magic. So let's get that out there. So first of all, doing magic for other people. I generally do not unless they specifically ask me to, or if I think it's a really good idea, I will get their permission first. So I mentioned if you follow me over on Instagram, that is Witch Wednesdays Podcast, and I'll be linked below if you're interested, but I was showing myself making a fertility charm bag for my best friend who is going through IVF. She is not a witch herself, but she has always been very open to it. She follows the podcast, she follows the Instagram, so she knows all of these things. So she's always been open to it. It's just not something that she has practiced herself. But since going through this IVF process, which is tough and expensive, she has become more open to the idea of like, okay, what can we do? Do we do like a spell on a full moon? Like what essential oils do I need? So she's really getting into it. So I wanted to make her a fertility charm bag before she went in for a procedure. And I asked her beforehand. I mean, I specifically asked her to make sure she wasn't allergic to any of the ingredients that I was going to use, because there was, I think, alfalfa in there, and alfalfa can be an allergen for a lot of people that they don't know about. So I did ask her that, but I was like, okay, I'm making you this. I want to make sure you're okay with it. And she was like, oh yes, go for it, absolutely. So even though it's positively intentioned and it's something that she wants, it's still something that I asked her to make sure that she was okay with it. So especially people who don't practice, don't know that you are going to be doing it, I think it's just a good idea to ask and make sure that they are okay with it and okay with the energy you're sending out if you think it's perfectly positive. So I always ask people. The only time I don't is if I am baking something. I know like a big group will consume it, and I generally just put in positive, sort of happy energy. Let's say I am baking a tray of brownies for hosting a party at my house. I will like draw a sigil into that and send energy into that. Everybody has a happy week ahead and they have luck and success in what they're doing. That is a very baseline, neutral, like happy, positive energy that I am sending to them. It's also not, targeted or very intense. It's just sort of like a blanket. Like everybody who comes into my house and consumes this, I want them to have, good fortune. And I don't have any ethical issue with that, even though I'm not telling everybody who consumes those brownies that intention isn't there. And let's talk then about baneful magic, which I mentioned that I do baneful magic. Like normally what I do is send people's negative energy back to them. And even Wiccans who believe that, you should do no harm will also do this, where they send the person's negative intention right back to them. So it's their energy sort of bouncing off a mirror and going right back to them. You're not the one that's putting it out in the world. They put it out. They're just getting it back in return. So a lot of even Wiccans will practice that because there is an ebb and flow to all energy. It can't be created or destroyed. It just exists. So that negative energy that's coming at you from somebody, it's not just going to go away and dissipate. It just changes form. And I have no issues sending that back to them. If they are a particularly negative or toxic person, then I feel like they should get a dose of their own medicine. They sent it out, they're just getting it back. And I think that is perfectly well deserved. I am also fine with doing baneful magic against people who, in my mind, completely deserve it. And even though it wasn't directed at me in the first place. So I might not be sending their own, they were targeting me and I'm sending it back to them. It's just that they are horrible people in general. I volunteered in an animal shelter, for example, and if there are abused animals that come in, I may not be able to know exactly who the owner is, but I set my intention for whoever abused that animal. I hope you get hit by a bus. Like, honestly, I have no issues sending baneful magic that way. I don't necessarily believe in the death penalty for a lot of cases, but for animal abuse, I have no problem with it. I'll tell you that right now. It's like my top issue is, who does, anyway, I'm not going to get into that, but I absolutely do send nasty, baneful magic to those people. Personally, I don't have any ethical issues with that. That is something that a lot of witches, a lot of Wiccans would take issue with because I am targeting somebody. I am sending negative energy. In my opinion, they put it out there in the first place. So they're sending their own, negative energy back to them. But that is something that a lot of witches would feel uncomfortable with. And it's not something that everybody has to do, wants to do. There's nothing wrong with that. I do not judge other people's practices. It's not my place. It has nothing to do with me. And you have to do with what whatever you feel comfortable with. And personally, I feel comfortable with that. I feel comfortable enough in my abilities. I feel comfortable enough with the outcomes, and I feel, it fits with my morals and values, and I feel comfortable enough with the consequences, because that is something that you always have to consider, that that energy could bounce back at you. The spell could fail in some way. Other people have, especially other witches, have their own protections up. They have spirits, spirit guides that are protecting them. So there are a lot of different ways that something like that could backfire. So you have to be prepared for the consequences. In my experience, the consequences aren't exactly rebounding. So you are not going to get the exact, spell that you cast reflected back on you, but you can get some negative feelings, and you can have some side effects from that. That can include, something negative happening to you, like losing money. You could be getting really sick. So those things are an absolute possibility. So whenever I do baneful magic, I absolutely weigh those. Like, what could potentially happen to me? What sort of consequences could I face? And whether or not I am okay with that. And that's, I think, something, I don't actually think people weigh this, but before you do something illegal, it's just something you should weigh. Like, am I okay with going to jail forever because I robbed this bank? I don't know that people think about it, but they should. So there are, like I said, consequences to all of our actions. So it's just something to consider, and consider whether or not you are okay with the consequences that could come from that. Like I said, I think everybody's practice is their own. They have their own morals and values. So I don't pass judgment on anyone else's practice, even if it's not something that I would undertake a baneful working for. If somebody else wants to and they feel strongly about that, I pass no judgments. I support that, whatever anyone else wants to do. And there are two main exceptions to that I can think of. Is, first of all, tampering with food. So I don't mean, like I gave the example before of the tray of brownies and putting like a good intention to that. I mean putting substances in other people's food with the intention that they are going to consume that, and that will, affect their free will in some way. And because it's usually a not great edible ingredient that they would normally expect to be in the food. So I'm not just talking like spices. I'm talking people will put, blood or fingernails ground up into the food with the idea that that person is then going to consume it. It's usually a method of control. So some sort of, domination or power or love spell, something like that. You can't tamper with people's food. It's actually illegal in most places to put something like your blood into some soup or drink that you're making for them that they're going to consume. It is illegal in most places. So don't do that. As you pass judgment on that, that's something people need to know if they are consuming that. And even with ingredients that are normally edible, I still feel like you should ask and let them know that it's going to be in there, just in case there's any allergies. You really don't want to be hiding stuff in general, because that's a liability as well. So I think that you should just be a little more open and honest in that area. And the second exception I pass judgment on is disposing of spell ingredients. You have to be just careful with that. You don't want to send anything out into nature that's not biodegradable and just throw it out there like trash. I feel like that is negative energy that's going to come back to you. I am an animist, guided by animist principles, which means I believe that everything has its own energy and spirit. So trees have their own energy, and everything is sort of supposed to be respected. So humans don't usually, as a whole, we definitely do not respect this planet. And a lot of people in particular don't respect nature and will just throw the trash out there. It doesn't biodegrade, it doesn't go away. So I feel like that is definitely going to bring down negative consequences on you, but it's also something that I judge. You need to just be careful. You need to be careful that you put out there that animals could consume and get to, because again, I feel like animals all have their own spirit that deserves respect, and throwing out, ingredients that could kill them if they consume it is bad. And just generally being careful that you're not throwing toxic ingredients into waterways that could get into drinking water. Again, a lot of these things are illegal. If you want to dispose of spell ingredients by burying them someplace significant, a lot of times that can be illegal to start digging up the grounds on a cemetery or outside a hospital. that can be illegal. So there are definite consequences to that. But I just don't believe in disposing of toxic spell ingredients by like burying them in your backyard or throwing them into a waterway. I think there are better ways to go about that. So those are the only two things that I pass judgment on that I feel like nobody should be doing. Not least of all because they are illegal. And that is everything about my own personal ethics. I just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of, even though they say there's no rules in witchcraft, which I wholeheartedly believe that within witchcraft there are not, I think there are rules in larger society, there are laws, and I'm personally guided by my own code of morals and ethics. So agree, disagree, let me know in the comments. Again, I pass no judgment either way. Most witches in my life do not do baneful magic. It takes a while to get comfortable with that, and some witches will never get comfortable with it. So no judgment if that's not what you want to do, but I just wanted to be honest about, where I am. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I will be in there to discuss with you. So that is everything that I have for this Friday. I will see you next Friday. Again, don't forget to subscribe and give the video a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.